guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to have some fun and rank the top 3 epics in every single faction in this game. If you guys like this video idea, let me know in the comments below and maybe I'll duplicate it with legendaries. I shouldn't say duplicate and legendaries in the same sentence. That should be against the rules here on the channel. So scratch that. I will redo the video with legendaries and rares if you guys like this idea. Now going into this video, I thought it was going to be super easy to make these lists, right? And then I noticed that some factions, man, they're really hurting, while others are totally stacked. So either way, we'll have a good bunch of champions to share with you guys today, starting with the Banner Lords. Banner Lords, is commonly known as having some of the worst champions in the game comparative to other factions, and that is the case even with the epics. There is one big outlier though, and that is Stag Knight, a newer champion in the game compared to some of the old school champions, and it's a good thing too because he is incredible. He's a top 5 epic champion in my opinion, and he is a Banner Lord. His kit is very simple. He's a passive that increases your accuracy, puts an increased accuracy buff on your champions for 1 turn every time an ally has a debuff resisted. So that's not too bad there, but really it's all about his A2, Huntmaster. It's very simple. 3-turn cooldown, has the big version of the most powerful debuffs in the game, or I should say the most necessary debuffs in the game in order to really allow your team to excel. And then on his A1, decreased speed, but that's about it. I mean, 3-turn cooldown on again, the big version of decreased defense and decreased attack. What more could you ask for in the champion? He's simple, but he is definitely widely used in campaign. Some people even use him in the arena before their nukers go, in Fire Knight especially, and in Ice Golem. He shines in all those areas. You can even use him in Dragon's Lair depending on the stage that you're on, although it is a negative affinity matchup for Dragons 20. Next up on the list, we're going to go ahead and go to, I had some choices to make here, but I went with Knight Errant. I felt like he deserved a nod as an underrated champion. He hits incredibly hard, one of the best multipliers, one of the best sheer damage champions in the entire game, including legendary champions. On this A3, attacks 1 enemy, has a 100% chance when booked of placing a weakened debuff for 2 turns, and then damage is increased by 75% if this champion has full HP. So obviously you want to use this as your opening move, and then you can go right to his A2. Attacks 1 enemy, has a chance of placing a stun, resets the cooldown on each of this champion's skills if the target is killed. So you'll probably be killing them with a Death Warrant, but if you don't, you can go right into this next ability, even if it's the next turn, it doesn't matter, and then boom, you'll have a refresh of Death Warrant again. So definitely an interesting and cool kit. He also has a leech chance on his A1. Knight Errant is a very heavy hitter. I know that another YouTuber, Murder Inc., put out a video of him hitting for like 350k damage on a single target in a level 20 dungeon. That's pretty incredible. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to Oathbound. I decided to go with Oathbound last because as the 3rd champion here to highlight, he is a Force Affinity Bannerlord, obviously. He has a very kind of niche utility, niche kit that is best serviced in Arena. On the A1, he has a chance of landing freeze. Damage inflicted is proportional to defense, but yet it has attack on here anyway. His other abilities are all defense-based, though, which is important to know because look at his attack. It's very low. His defense is much better. But, his base stats here, we're going to talk a lot about base stats in today's video. They're not that great, to be honest. But his abilities are. So, attacks all enemies in AoE, has a 75% chance, 95% chance when booked up of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Also has a 55% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 20%. So again, that is a really solid ability, 75% chance when booked up. And, decreasing target's turn meter is really great on an AoE. Attacks all enemies 4 times. Each hit has a 30% chance, 50% chance when booked of placing a block cooldown skills. Block cooldown skills increases to 100% if the target is under decreased attack. So man, if you can actually build out an arena team where you have somebody like a Madame Ceres or somebody who goes first with a decreased attack debuff, and then he goes right after that with the Intimidate ability, you can block cooldown skills for 2 turns. That's insane. It's kind of like a mini hegemon kind of worked into your team. So that ability is great for Oathbound. The only downside is it's 4 times at random. so you have to get lucky to hit every single one of the opponents in the arena one time. Either way, he does have a unique kit that I thought deserved a little recognition. All right, we're gonna step up the pace here, otherwise we'd be here all day. There's a lot of factions in this game. High Elves next. Royal Guard is a beast, you guys know, because of the takedown ability. I do think that Royal Guard is, I mean, a lot of people appropriately value him, as one of the best champions in the game. I stand by that. I think that he is one of the best champions in the game. I mean, just because of his takedown ability, you see so many end game players, end game teams still running him in dungeons just because you can't get better than the takedown, especially in Ice Golem and in Dragon's Lair. So that is Royal Guard. Next up, we're going to go ahead and visit Tyrell. Tyrell, another top 5 champion, so 2 really strong High Elves. High Elves, an incredibly good faction, especially compared to Bannerlords. Has an AoE decreased defense on his A2, which he's known for, and the decreased attack on his A1. His damage is based on defense. He's a great clan boss lead as well. People can use him in the arena because of the preemptive strike. He can be used in all dungeons, pretty much anywhere in the game. Has a great aura to increase ally defense in all battles by 25%. A lot of people run him as lead in clan boss. And then last, I could have went with a few of these champions. I could have went with Battle Sage, who's really good. I could have went with Athenasil as well, who actually carries me in level 21 faction crypts on High Elves. But I decided to go with Vergis. Vergis is a champion who was the worst High Elf for a long time, Spirit Affinity, but he got a big buff in the last balance changes, and I think he's actually pretty good now. His damage is based on defense, as you guys can see, but he only does defense on, he only has 2 active abilities, and actually, he kind of has a passive active on his A3. We'll talk about that in a second. But either way, now he's actually a real pain. He has a reflect damage buff on his A1 on a random ally each time he uses it. That can be booked up to a 50% chance. So the reflect on the A1 is solid, has a continuous heal, increased speed, and reflect damage buff on a target allies for 3 turns on his A2. Also now places an ally protect buff on all allies except this champion for 2 turns, and a big version of increased defense on this champion for 2 turns. Look at all these buffs that he's placing here. He's got the continuous heal, the ally protect, the increased speed on 1 target, and then the increased defense on himself. A really robust ability here on the Aegis. And then on the second wind passive, has a passive effect that places a shield buff on this champion equal to 10% of their max HP for 2 turns whenever this champion loses 10% or more of their max HP from a single hit. Solid ability, right? Makes him difficult to kill. And then active effect plays a 15% continuous heal buff on this champion for 2 turns every time their HP drops below 50%. So he's healing himself, he's shielding himself, he can just be a pretty good carry, and then his aura is really solid too. Increases ally defense in dungeons by 33%. He's a great lead in dungeons. He's gonna be, put him in a provoke set or something like that too. Actually, I take that back. He won't be good in provoke because he only has one single target hitter. But I'm telling you, if he is your main tank, he's going to be so difficult to kill. He's going to keep the team alive with his ally protect, which is really key to his kit. And then the shields and the continuous heals, Vergis isn't going anywhere. So that is the High Elves faction. Moving on to Sacred Order. So Sacred Order is notorious for having a lot of like solid champions, but none that stand out as like S tier in the game. Lightsworn, probably the best known out of all the champions here because he is a key part of a lot of the previous unkillable comps seen in Clan Boss. They've had to nerf, the unkillable comps mainly because of Lightsworn a lot in the past. So his Indomitable places a 60% increased defense buff and a revive on death buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. What a great ability here, and that's what he's known for. He is Void Affinity, a little bit tougher to come by. Also has the decreased attack debuff and the decreased speed debuff for 2 turns on his A2. That is Brutality, and then Tear Down, a 1 enemy 3 timer, decreases target's turn meter by 10%. So not bad for Fire Knights as well as a support unit. And then after that, there's kind of another step down. I decided to go with not Missionary, my bad. Where are you, Aothar? There you go. Aothar next up, and he is an average to slightly above average poison dealer in this game. He doesn't have a poison on his A1, which is unfortunate, but on his A2, it's 4 times placing the 5%, the big version of poison debuff on a 3-turn cooldown. So the Holy Flame ability in itself is one of the better poison abilities in the game. So I decided to give a nod to Eothar for that reason. Also attacks 1 enemy, places a block cooldown skills debuff for 2 turns on his A3 on a 3-turn cooldown. Not a bad ability brand at all, although you are mainly using him in Clan Boss where you can't place a block cooldown skills on the enemy. Same thing for the Dragon too. So it's, you know, it's kind of semi-helpful here, but it doesn't fit or synergize that well with the rest of his kit. You're not really seeing Eothar in Arena where you really value the block cooldown skills ability. So then last but not least, I decided to go with Frostbringer as my 3rd champion. She is a support champion. She is pretty solid. I like her because of her A3. Has the increased speed buff, 30% increased speed buff, and the increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns. However, it is on a 4-turn cooldown when booked, so that makes her a little bit less desirable than other speed boosters out there like High Katoon or like Apothecary. However, she does have more utility in her kit because she has a 3-time at random. Places a strong version of decreased defense debuff on all for 2 turns, excuse me, if the target has a heal reduction debuff on a 3-turn cooldown, and then she has that heal reduction, the 100% heal reduction on her A1. So again, the synergy here between the A2 and the A1 is apparent, but I really don't like that. On a 3-time at random, I really wish the decreased defense was just guaranteed, or it was a 75% chance of the decreased defense. I hate the qualifier of having to have the heal reduction, but overall her kit is pretty solid, and I decided to put her over a few other champions that were probably tied in this spot because she has the best aura. Increased ally defense in dungeons by 33%. That's a really, really strong defensive aura to have on an epic champion, let alone her. So I feel like increasing the speed and having that aura makes her very valuable on a lot of dungeon teams. So next up is the Barbarians, who are a very good faction. They have a High Katoon, who everybody will get in the game. She's very free to play, or she's very accessible for anybody in the game because you get her from your daily login reward. Her kit is all about speed, and she has just very, very nice synergy. Pretty good on the base stats as well. 104 speed. She has increased ally speed in all battles by 19% for her aura. On her A3, it's an AoE attack that also decreases the turn meter of all of the enemies. And then our A2 fills a turn meter of all the allies and places the increased speed buff for 2 turns, unlike Frostbringer on the 3-turn cooldown. Exactly what we're looking for there. You want to build her out with a lot of speed, some accuracy to land the decreased turn meter on the A3, and you'll be looking really good. She also has a decreased speed individual debuff on her A1, so just a beautiful synergy in her kit. She's a great champion. And then next up, we're going to go with one of the best healers in the game. And, you know, once upon a time, I released a video a few months ago calling her a trash champion, and I will never live that down. She's an incredible healer, and she has a really cool look, too. I love the aesthetics of Skytouch Shaman. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but I actually don't have her. She's one of the only epics in the game I don't have, so unfortunate there. I would love to try her out and build her out. Either way, her kit is really interesting. HP in all battles by 25%. Her passive here, let's just get right to it, damages this champion by 10% of their max HP at the start of every turn. It also places a decreased speed on her at the start of every turn. Also has a 50-50 shot of placing a fear debuff on her for 1 turn at the start of every turn. But it heals all allies except this champion equal to half of the lost HP. So that's going to be pretty solid. You build her out with a ton of HP. She's not going to be hit as hard by these 10%, and she's going to be healing all the champions equal to half of the lost HP. It's a great heal every single turn. Now on her A2, remove all debuffs from all allies. It's a cleanser on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. Then place a revive on death buff and a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. What a great support, and even on her A1 is a solid ability. Attacks all enemies, so an AoE on her A1 heals by 15% of the damage inflicted if this champion has less than 50% HP. If not, boost this champion's turn meter by 20% instead if she has higher than 20% HP. Altogether, she has a really underrated kit, and even underrated by me. I did not get that passive. I was like, wait, I have to deal with a fear debuff, a decreased speed debuff. This champion is trash. But no, no, no. Don't be so quick to judge. And I learned my lesson there on Sky Touched. So now let's go to Kalia. I decided to go to Kalia as my last champion here. Look at her base stats here, guys. This is what people don't realize about Kalia. I think she probably has high reviews. She does have pretty high reviews here, but she's solid. Almost 1600 on an attack. All of her multipliers and scaling are really good on Kalia, so she can put out a decent amount of damage, and she has high speed at 106, so a very high base speed for an epic champion as well, for an attack-based champion. So her aura is attack in all battles by 25%, a solid aura on her as well. Her A3 is attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 60% chance of placing an HP burn. She also has an HP burn on her A1. Attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of placing an HP burn, and again, that can be booked up to 40% chance. And then an AoE on her A2. An AoE on a 3-turn cooldown, that's what we're looking for from all our AoE attackers, especially our nukers in this game. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 100% heal reduction debuff for 2 turns. So all in all, Kalia has really high base stats and a pretty serviceable kit, especially for kind of mid-game, maybe into the earlier late-game stages of Raid Shadow Legends. So those are my 3 champions for Barbarians. So for the Ogryn Tribe, well, I only have, 8 champions to choose from here. Obviously, we're going to go with Skullcrusher. He is, let's keep it really simple here. He's the only epic champion with counterattack buff on allies, so he has to be in any conversation. Also has the ally protect there as well. Decreases the duration of all debuffs on this champion by 1 turn. His aura is only good in faction crypts, so we'll ignore that. And his damage is based on defense, albeit only his A1 is actually hitting. It can hit pretty hard, though, considering he is just a support champion. That's Skullcrusher. Next up, I decided to give a nod to my man Occult Brawler just because he is the best poison layer. Not in terms of his overall kit and utility, because his base defense is too low to really be used in Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss, but in terms of just sheer poison damage, because of his passive, places a 70% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff on a random enemy for 4 turns at the start of each turn. Because of this passive and the fact that he's already placing poisons at a 60% chance on his A1, he can place the most poison damage even compared to, Draco or Nethril. Not a better champion overall than those champions, let me be very clear in saying that, but can place more poison damage, can outdamage any poison champion, providing you can keep him alive in the game. So for that reason, especially just for Clan Boss alone, you have to go ahead and include him in the list. At least I decided to. And then I went with Maneater as my 3rd choice here because of, well, his Ancient Blood ability. He's a great support champion. On a 5-turn cooldown when booked, this champion receives damage, a very negligible amount of damage, barely even notice it. Places an unkillable buff and a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. Damage received equal to 5% of this HP for each enemy alive ally. Each ally alive, excuse me. So anyway, Ancient Blood is good because he's a part of these unkillable comps in Clan Boss, kind of like Lightsworn is as well. And also you can use this as just a great support ability inside dungeons and even inside the arena on defense as well. He will lead off with his Ancient Blood in the arena on the auto or on defense. Attacks one enemy, fully depletes the target's turn meter, fills his champion's turn meter equal to the amount of target losses or loses. That's an amazing. Siphon is also a very underrated ability in his kit, especially in dungeons. It's going to help you out a lot, and you can use this against bosses, use this against Ice Golem, use this against Fire Knight as well. And then on his A1, attacks one enemy, has a decreased attack debuff on all enemies if the attack is critical. I love this too. Like, his kit is very, all of his abilities are very solid. The decreased attack that it spreads to all enemies is great. You just want to build him with 100% crit rate, and the rest of his kit is definitely solid as well. Also has an HP in dungeons by 33%. So that is the Ogryn Tribe, my top 3 for Ogryn. Next up is Lizardmen. So Lizardmen has, we only have 6 to choose from here. So who do you think I'm going with, guys? I'm going to go ahead and lead things off with Jareg. Jareg is a great Clan Boss support champion, 4.9 in Clan Boss here. He's good for support really anywhere in this game. You can see his passive is placed a 15% continuous heal buff on an ally for 1 turn whenever the ally loses 20% of their max HP in one hit. Not a bad little helper for the healing on a team, especially works well in Clan Boss, as I mentioned. Has an ally HP in all battles by 33%, so if you don't have that defensive aura, you don't have that Tyrell, for example, or whoever in Clan Boss, you can go ahead and use him as an aura lead, and then has an ally protect and an increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns. Having that big version of increased defense on all allies for 2 turns is really good, albeit on a 4-turn cooldown. And then on his A1, attacks 1 enemy, has a decreased attack. So he has decreased attack, increased defense, ally protect, and continuous heal with a good aura, all in his kit. He's a great support champion. And then we have, next up, I decided to go with his cousin. Not Jareg, but Jareng. So Jareng is a pretty decent champion as well. He has ally speed in dungeons by 23%. That's one of the highest ally speeds you'll get in dungeons in the epic category. And then on his A3, attacks 3 times at random. Each hit has a 50% chance of placing a decreased attack and a decreased defense buff for 2 turns. Pretty solid there on Talons. And then attacks 1 enemy 2 times, has a 50% chance, 75% chance of landing a stun for 1 turn. In arena, you know, in mid-game, early game arena, you can just take one of the opponents, one of the enemies out of the battle immediately with that stun, and then attacks 1 enemy and will ignore 25% of the target's defense. A solid ability here on Armor Piercer on the A1. But really, it's all about this Talons. Having the big version of decreased attack and decreased defense makes him very serviceable as well, especially in Clan Boss. Now the third one that I chose, and by the way guys, Lizardmen, in case you didn't notice, not only are there only 6 champions, but none of them are especially good, with the exception, again, of Jareg, in my opinion. But I decided to go with Broadmaw to kind of round out this list. Broadmaw has an ally defense in the arena by 33%, has a revives 2 random dead allies with 25% HP, also places a block damage buff when revived for 1 turn on them on a 5-turn cooldown. So reviving 2 allies on a 5-turn cooldown with the block damage isn't too bad. And again, you're really using him on an arena defense team, which doesn't, you know, I mean, he's alright. He's an alright champion. Also has a 15% increased speed on all allies for 2 turns. Crit rate as well, but who really cares about increased crit rate? Is there a more worthless ability in this game than increased crit rate? Because you're never really building a team. Let me know if you guys are the exception to the rule, but I don't know anybody who builds a team around an increased crit rate champion. You're either building somebody with close to 100% crit rate or not. Anyway, Ice Blast has a chance of landing the freeze, not bad, a 35% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn on his A1. So again, Broadmaw and Jareng are not anything too special, but, you know, slim pickings here in Lizardmen. So Skinwalkers is another faction that honestly is a little bit underwhelming. We have Flesh Terror, who's the first champion that I want to point out to you guys. He has a pretty interesting and underrated kit, and these are the type of champions that I'm glad to talk about here on a video like this. His aura is whatever in Faction Crypts. His A3 is he has a buff extender and a debuff extender in his kit, which is 2 really great abilities. So attacks all enemies, decreases the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn, so a buff decreaser. Also increases the duration of all enemy debuffs by 1 turn. So, you know, namely very good for poison against Clan Boss. Increases the duration, is same thing with Dragon, and that's on a 4-turn cooldown. Now on his A2, it's a heal. Heals all allies by 30% of their max HP, and then again, increases the duration of all ally buffs for 1 turn. So again, going back to Clan Boss, increase the counterattack so you have it up the entire battle. Really solid. And on the A1, attacks 1 enemy, 40% chance, 50% chance when booked of transferring 1 random debuff from this champion to the target. So that is Flesh Terror. The best champion in the epic category, in my opinion, is going to be Steel Skull in the Skinwalkers. Steel Skull is great because he has an increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns and heals all allies by 20% of their max HP. So an AoE ally heal and increased defense on a 4-turn cooldown, not bad at all. Also has a debuff cleanser. from a target ally, and then heals them by 40% on a 3-turn cooldown. Very helpful, again, cleansing away, clearing out those stuns in Clan Boss. He is definitely a Clan Boss champion for sure. And then attacks one enemy 2 times, has a 10% chance of placing a poison for 2 turns. So again, that can be booked up to, 35% chance. So not only is he helping heal your team, cleanse those debuffs, adding the increased defense, but he's also landing poisons to help you out as well. So that's Steel Skull. Again, he is my favorite Skinwalker epic champion. And then ending things out here, I decided to go with Basher. Is really a step down, in my opinion, after Flesh Terror and Steel Skull. And we have Basher here. So Basher isn't awful. He is, just being used in the arena. He has a weaken. A 75% chance of placing the weaken debuff on his A1 is really solid. And then on his A2, attacks all enemies, so a 3-turn AoE attack, increases the cooldown of all the target skills by 2 turns. So hey, now that I read this again, it's a solid ability, you know? I mean, his attack is nothing to kind of scoff at either at 1498. So an AoE based on attack and increases the cooldown of all target skills by 2 turns is a solid ability on a 3-turn cooldown. And then a 4 times at random, 75% chance, 100% chance when booked of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. So honestly, his kit is pretty solid. He's not the best in the game, but I said it was a big step down, but now upon further review, you know, he's not too bad. I think that he's probably properly rated right alongside Flesh Terror in the Skinwalker category. So Orcs have some of the best epic champions in the game. They have champions like Ultimate Gaelic, who's really good in Spiders because of the HP burn. They have champions like Terror Beast, who's really good in Fire Knight's Castle and in Campaign. And we have champions like Sandlash Survivor, who are really good in Clan Boss. However, I decided to go with Zargala, who is one of the best nukers in the game because of her A3. Attacks all enemies 3 times. After the first hit, has a 50% chance, 75% chance when booked of placing a decreased defense as well for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. And then on the A2, on a 2-turn cooldown, instantly activates the crack armor skill if the target is killed. So she kills a target, she instantly gets right into procs another crack armor ability without putting this on cooldown. It's a really great synergy here between her A2 and her A3. She can put out a lot of damage. You can even put her in stun gear or whatever and may add to her kit via one of the special kind of artifact sets in the game. Attacks one enemy, has a chance of placing the weaken on the A1. That is Zargala, has an accuracy by 40 in all battles, kind of a whatever aura, but Zargala is definitely one of the better champions in the game in the epic category. And you guys know my favorite nuker in the entire game is Seer. I think that Seer is just incredible because of the Karma Burn. Now, Seer got a nerf. Maybe about 6 months ago now. It's been a while, but she's still incredibly good because of Karma Burn. In case you missed my video yesterday with the new fusion champion, Mossbeard, check him out because really Seer, you can see how crazy she goes, especially when she's under those poisons with extra damage because of Mossbeard. It's incredible. She can nuke down. She is the ultimate nuker, the ultimate speed nuker, because of this ability, removes all buffs from all allies and all enemies, then attacks all enemies, damage increased according to the number of buffs removed, and it's based on enemy max HP. This ability hits so incredibly hard, especially against waves. Clan Banner adds 2 buffs to all of the, or adds a buff to all of your allies, excuse me, and then places a weaken debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, and then has attacks one enemy, 15% chance, 20 when booked of granting an extra turn, which is helpful as well. Just increase the, decrease the cooldowns of Karma Burn and Clan Banner. And the last champion I went with is actually Vrask. Now, Vrask is really borderline. I could have definitely went with Sandlash or Gaelic or the other champions that I pointed out earlier. I decided to go with Vrask because his passive is just so incredible, especially in the mid game. Heals all allies by 10% of his max HP when he inflicts a critical hit. That's it. Build him out with a ton of HP. He has already a pretty high base HP. He scales very well. So build him out with a lot of HP, and he's healing allies by, if you can build him out to 90k HP, by 9,000 damage every single time he attacks. Put him in Relentless gear. He's even better. Fills his champion's turn meter on his A1. Again, it's all about speed, all about HP on him, and then he's going to be healing your entire team up throughout the duration of any single battle that you have him in. defense in dungeons by 33% on his aura as well. That is Vrask, definitely one of the stronger, along with Skytouch Shaman, one of the stronger healing-based champions, and even Steel Skull. We talked about like 3 of the best healers here in the epic category so far in this video. Let's move on to the next faction. So moving on to Undead Horde, this is another kind of stacked faction. There's a lot of honorable mentions. I don't think I need to go through every single one on because this video is going to be long enough as is. So, you know, suffice it to say, there's a lot of great options in this category. I went with Dark Elaine. Dark Elaine is another one of those login rewards. She's great because of her her A1 has a decreased target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted. Not too bad on the A1, but really it's about Death's Majesty on a 3-turn cooldown. Places an increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns, then attacks all enemies. Has a 50% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns as well. It is based on attack. Her attack is 1365, but if you build her out with a lot of crit damage, she can put out a ton of damage on this A2, and she's great for Ice Golem's peak, and she's great for kind of like Torment teams or anti-freeze teams inside the arena. Fills this champion's turn meter by 25% and instantly activates the Death's Majesty skill. Just like we talked about on Zargala, instantly activates means she'll automatically do it immediately, you know, and it does not decrease the cooldown. It does not touch the cooldown of this skill otherwise. So you can do back-to-back Death's Majesty if she was already going to have it up on her next turn anyway. We're going to be increasing her turn meter, going to be using Death's Majesty, and then boom, she can do a back-to-back Death's Majesty because she might be up because of the turn meter. Hope I did a good job of explaining that. Instantly removes any freeze debuffs on this champion and replaces them with increased crit rate, increased crit damage, and a strengthen buff whenever an enemy places a freeze debuff on this champion. So she's a great anti-freezer in Dark Elaine. Next up, I decided to go with, well, Mausoleum Mage is, you know, widely considered to be one of the better epic supports in the game. A lot of people build him up with incredibly high resist because he has a very nice debuff cleanser. So on his A3, Winds of Purging, removes all debuffs from all allies, then heals all allies by 10% of this champion's max HP. Heals each ally a further 10% for 1 turn if one or more debuffs were removed from that ally. Fills each ally's turn meter by 15% if 2 or more debuffs were removed from that ally. So a beautiful debuff cleanser and a heal and turn meter addition, a boost built into this one ability. And then we have Might of Undeath, place a block debuffs buff on all allies for 1 turn. Also place an increased crit rate and an increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. You know, in the Orcs category, we talked about Seer. Seer paired with the Mausoleum Mage is great because Mausoleum is placing 3 of these buffs on everybody. That's 3 times 4 more damage that you're putting out with your Seer when she strips those buffs away. And then we have on the A1, attacks 1 enemy, 30% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. This is a kit on Mausoleum Mage, and a high speed, by the way, too, at 104 for a support, you know? This is a kit that can really prove valuable in a lot of dungeons, in arena, just in a lot of different areas in the game. And I know a lot of people have him sitting in their vault, and they just truly, he's one of those champions that you don't appreciate how good he is until you put him on your teams. Anyway, guys, I decided to end things out here with Zelota. So again, this was a real tough one here, deciding who I was going to go with my 3rd champion. This is a stacked category or faction in Undead Horde, but he has a great kit. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance, 75 when booked, of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn, has a 75% chance or 100 against enemies under debuffs. So solid on Horrid Dreams. And then has a shield buff on all allies equal to 20% of this champion's max HP for 3 turns. Also places a continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. Armored Scales is it's different than Miscreated Monster's shield, but it's definitely one of the best shields in all epic champions inside the game on the Armored Scales ability. It's based on his max HP, so you build him up to have a lot of hit points, so he's placing these really beast mode shields on your champions. He's definitely a top 5, probably 4 or 5, number 4 or 5 in terms of the shield that he has, his shield ability, including legendaries in the game. Attacks 1 enemy, has a 15% chance of placing a sleep debuff for 1 turn on his A1, can be booked up as well, and then has resist in the arena by 70. So having like a Zelota and a Mausoleum Mage, creates kind of like this really strong tandem if you want to build kind of a fun, if there's a fun resist team in the arena. So that is Undead Horde. So next, guys, we're moving on to Dark Elves, who have a lot of really great epic champions. We want to start out by giving a nod to Luria. Luria is the best freeze layer out of all epic champions inside the game. She has on her A1, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a decreased defense or 100% heal reduction buff or a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Kind of a whatever, not bad, not awful. Not amazing either. If it was, I would so much rather have it just be decreased defense, and then you'd be like, oh wow, that's a really solid ability there on a 75% chance too. But really, it's all about the Mark of Fear. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing, a 75% chance when booked of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived, and it is based on attack 2, and her attack is pretty healthy at 1487. Also, with her speed there at 104, so she's pretty fast, she hits pretty hard, and she has a 75% chance of landing a freeze, which is, one of the better, not the best, but not the worst CC ability inside the game. So that is the highest percentage on an AoE freeze inside the epic category inside the entire game, on 75% chance. Attacks one enemy, removes all buffs, and then places an 80% chance of placing a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. Again, that can be booked up to 100% chance, and it deals decent damage too on the Hex ability. So that is Luria. Next, I decided to go with Lua. Lua is another pretty cool champion, attacks one enemy, deals 50% of the target's inflicted damage to all enemies if the attack is critical. And then on the A2, attacks all enemies 3 times. Each critical hit heals this champion by 2.5% HP on a 3-turn cooldown. This is a great ability. She's great for spiders. Put her in a stun gear set and watch her work. She'll be landing 3 chances at landing a stun on all enemies and healing herself up to full HP in Spider's den. And then Lucky Shot is a really cool ability too. It's kind of like Cold Heart-esque. Without the damage, of course. Attacks one enemy, decreases the target's turn meter by 100%, also will ignore shield and block damage buffs. Lua has an insane kit. She's a really good champion. And again, her attack is high at 1564. Her speed is a little bit low at 97, but not too bad. You can work with that. And then, of course, probably the best epic champion in the game, certainly top 5, is Madame Ceres. Best for Arena, I'll give her that. Best epic champion for Arena. Her kit's insane and it's long, so let's go through it quickly. Has a chance of placing fear depending on the amount of debuffs on the target on her A1. Has a chance of stealing buffs and placing a block debuffs and a true fear on her A2. Very good AoE ability. Doesn't do a lot of damage though. She's not a damage dealer, she's a debuffer at its very finest. And then removes Midnight Ritual, removes all buffs from all enemies, so a buff stripper. And then places, did that come out right? And then places a decreased attack and a decreased defense on all enemies for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown when booked out, and then has a shield at the beginning of each turn equal to 10% of her HP. When attacked while under that shield, she has a chance of landing fear. She's an incredible champion, and that is the Dark Elves category. And again, continuing the trend here as we end this video, or get close to the ending of this video, in Knight Revenant, a lot of great epic champions here. Doom Priest and Sinesha are both really, really great champions. Would definitely be on the top 3 of a lot of different categories that we're covering here. But we're going to go with Miscreated Monster. He has a stun and a shield based on the damage that he puts out on his A2, an insane ability, a stun on his A1, also a chance at placing a decreased defense. He has an ally protect and a continuous heal on himself on his A3, and then he has Spooky Groan passive, places a fear debuff on the attacker for 1 turn whenever an ally is attacked while under his ally protect. Also has HP in the arena by 33%. That's Miscreated Monster. We have Sepulture Sentinel, who is an amazing carry, an amazing support champion. It has a 50% chance of completely blocking incoming damage when an ally is attacked, occurs once per turn. So you can't block like all the incoming damage from Clan Boss, but you do have a 50-50 shot of blocking it from one champion. Every single time your allies are attacked. It's a great ability. and then has the increased defense and a block debuff buff on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, and then on the A1 has the decreased attack. Her kit just screams clan boss support. She also has the aura that you're looking for, ally defense in all battles by 25%. A lot of people using her as their main aura lead in clan boss. That's Sepulture Sentinel. And then I decided to end it out with who other than Skullcrown. Skullcrown is a consummate arena presence. She's amazing in the arena because she has an unkillable buff on herself for 1 turn every time her HP drops below 20%. So very difficult to kill Skullcrown. So many times a battle ends up just being a Skullcrown at 1 HP, finishing off your team, going with one of her strong AoE attacks. Attacks all enemies, an extra hit if the target has more than 50% HP on her A1, and then attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a weakened debuff for 2 turns, 75% chance when booked on a 3-turn cooldown on her A2. So the unkillable, the 2 AoE attacks, just makes her in a heavy hitting champion at 1509 base attack, and pretty good scalability on, or multipliers on this damage on the A2 especially, and in the A1 having an AoE there as well. All makes her kit very, very solid. Let's go ahead and move on to the last category. It is dwarves. So we only have 5 to choose from here. Who's going to be the lucky selections? It's going to be Rearguard Sergeant, another good clan boss carry and support champion in a variety of different dungeons in the game. She has a decreased defense on her A1. She has a decreased attack on her A2. And she has an ally protect and a continuous heal on her A3. So again, she's debuffing and supporting your team. A really, really solid champion. The only thing missing from her kit to make her more of a viable option in clan boss compared to like a Tyrell or a Sepulture Sentinel is, again, her aura. She does not have that defensive aura that you're looking for to run her as an aura lead. She has everything else in her kit to make her a great clan boss champion though. And then we went with Beard Owl Fellhammer. Beard Owl Fellhammer is a Fire Knight specialist, as you can see here, but he's used really everywhere in this game. He has a 2-hitter on his A1 with the heal reduction. On his A2, he has a one enemy 3 times. Places a shield buff on this champion equal to 30% of the damage inflicted for 3 turns. And then his passive is places a counterattack buff on this champion for 1 turn at the start of each round. Places a counterattack buff on this champion for 1 turn at the end of their turn. So that is Beard Owl Fellhammer. His aura is increased ally attack in dungeons by 32%. And then last but not least, it is Gala Longbraids. Gala, I was so excited about Gala Longbraids when I built her out and maxed her out. I did a guide on her as well, but she just does not have amazing multipliers on her attacks. She doesn't put as much damage, even in Savage Gear, which I had her in with a high crit damage. She puts out a lot of damage, but she's overshadowed by some other heavy hitting options in the game. All that said, she's still pretty solid. She has a pretty cool kit in that it kind of synergizes with shield. Attacks 1 enemy 2 times. Each hit ignores 30% of the target's defense. Places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns. The value of the shield is equal to 20% of the damage inflicted. Not a bad ability there, right, for the A1. And then A2 attacks 1 enemy, ignores 50% of the target's defense when attacking under shield buff, heals this champion by 50% of the damage inflicted, and then places a shield buff on this champion equal to any surplus heal for 3 turns. So another shield on fearless aggression. And then on the A3 attacks 1 enemy 3 times. Each hit ignores 25% of the target's defense, grants an extra turn if this champion has full HP after using this skill. So you start out with sheer swagger, and then you get an extra turn immediately. You go on to the fearless aggression, you place the shield on her, and then just like a great opening kind of play with Gala Longbraids. So there we have it, guys. Those are my top 3 epics in every category, every faction in this game. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. Which champion are you a huge fan of that would be maybe like number 1 on your list that I didn't even give a mention to? Let me know so maybe I can try them out, maybe build them out, and see what I'm missing. So guys, thank you so much for watching till the end. I really appreciate it, and as always, take care, guys.